it was a time where we were working hard. The pace and velocity of technology in San Francisco is just a different world. And I can speak more to like, other than just the experience, like what Y Combinator has like does for young founders and what the Bay Area does for young founders. But it was a fast-paced time building product. We ended up raising a seed round. I had my baby, and it was just an awesome experience for us. One of the qualitative things that I love about Y Combinator is when you show up, they totally brainwash you in Y Combinator that you can just do things. They really just drill it down into your mind that you can build what you want to build. So the first thing that we tackled when we started on Buster was, how can we take possibly a data warehouse with thousands of tables and thousands of columns and all the nuance of that and shove it into, at the time, a very small context window. So the first challenge was, how do we actually get documentation and context about a data stack, right? And that foundation. The next thing that we ran into was, okay, now that we actually have context, how do we actually get high level performance on SQL queries? So we like spent a year fine tuning open source models on schemas, adding in extra checks that allowed the LLM to iterate on itself. We had like this big pipeline of how we would essentially go trying to validate our work and improve the SQL before it reached a user. And now that's completely irrelevant because it like literally nails it out the gate every time. And so it's just interesting to see how the models have improved so drastically, especially on code generation related tasks over the last 2 years, context windows over the last 2 years. And so it's like totally changed. The other thing that's super interesting about it is from a cost perspective, the models have just dropped in cost every single year. I think the number is, if you're using a model at the beginning of the year, you can expect it to drop 10x by the end of the year as far as cost goes. And so, at first we were fine tuning models because we were like, okay, well, we need to use these small open source models to be able to actually make this thing economically feasible. And then now we actually did fine tune a SQL generation model, but now at this point we're like, basically the next release of models came out, we're like, that's irrelevant. One, they're better, and then two, they're cheaper. And so it's super interesting how quickly it has moved. And a part of the success that we've had so far has been us being able to move very, very quickly as new models come out that are better, cheaper, faster, and so on. We've actually switched to more of an agentive architecture that I can give you an example of right here, where essentially we have what we call a super agent. And what this super agent does is this is recursively thinking about the inputs and outputs that come from these actions. And the naming here is kind of unique to us, but you'll notice that we have something like search data catalog and documentation. This is a field that it can take. That doesn't size very well. But essentially what we do is we now allow a super agent with access to tools and function calling. We just do this through the native API function calling. It can actually iteratively decide, okay, I was asked to return revenue data. I, at the moment, don't have any revenue tables, anything that has to do with revenue. So I should go and search the data catalog. So Buster, we host like a data catalog that has a lot of this information and can feed it back to the LLM. The LLM runs a search, it brings it back, and it now has access to 3 tables. Then once it has access to the 3 tables, it's essentially thinking, okay, well, the user asked me for total revenue. I'm going to generate a single metric for this user. And now I'm going to input a certain argument to this function and get an output back. And essentially what we do now is we inform this super agent about the success of the tasks that it's executing. So if it searches the data catalog and fails, we return that back and we're like, hey, you like didn't get anything, like this isn't great. And then the agent kind of decides what the next steps are. And so one of the things that we think about that may not always be super obvious is if I'm working at a company and I am submitting data requests to do my job to the data team. And at first it's going to take me like 4 weeks to get an answer back. And then second, when that data analyst starts working on it, it's going to take them about 2 to 3 hours to actually accomplish the task. You start to look at, one, the convenience of me having my own personal data analyst, and then two, the speed at which Buster can deliver, a full report for me. Like right now, Buster's capable of doing, hey, I have a board meeting coming up. My goal is to show them, revenue growth in this region over the last year. Buster will spin up, 6 to 7 metrics, throw those onto a beautiful dashboard for you. It does it in less than 2 minutes typically, and it costs, for our side, the cost that we typically see is anywhere from 4 to 6 cents. And so you look at it from 2 minutes, 4 to 6 cents versus one, you can't get the answer right away. Two, once the data analyst starts working on it, it's going to take them hours, which if you're actually looking at the hourly rate, you're like, well, we just spent like $200 to get a report that Buster did for like 6 cents. I compare it pretty closely to what I do right now as a software engineer, right? I use Cursor as my code IDE. And I would say at this point, Cursor is writing anywhere from 80 to 90% of the code that I do. And my job has essentially turned from, kind of a code monkey of just like pumping out, line after line to how can I move as quickly as I can to orchestrate like the best features and feed that information into Cursor to ultimately build out those features for me. The way that I think I see job descriptions around analytics teams and data engineering teams change over the next few years is they very much become managers, almost like technical product managers, right? And on the analytics side, one, I still think, and I don't know how quickly this will actually change, I think the LMs really struggle to understand the business context that's happening in the world. And so I don't know if I see Buster very quickly replacing data analysts that are doing very proactive strategic work for their organization. I see analytics teams moving more towards how do we create the best environment for these AI agents to operate in. And then on the other side, it's, hey, what's the really meaningful work that we thought we were going to do when we graduated from school that we wish we were doing, but we can't do now because of all the day-to-day kind of mundane tasks that are getting thrown our way.